Good afternoon. So happy to see y'all. Happy to see you. And I'm very, very thankful for the chance to be here to share with you not just some news and some updates, but also to share why we think it is such a priority right now to making sure that we are driving down costs for Marylanders, and specifically on some of the biggest issues that Marylanders are facing right now, and that means prescription drugs. Why it is so important to make this a priority, and why it is so important to make sure that our people are protected. And so I am excited that we can have a chance to be here because this issue is seriously something that is touching so many Marylanders in so many different ways. Making sure that people who need prescription drugs can actually get them affordably. Making sure that we have people who are not having to choose between, can I get the drugs that I need that can either save my life, or am I worried about the price of food or taking care of my family? Making sure that we're not asking Marylanders to have to make very, very unfair and difficult decisions. And so whether you have a child with asthma, whether you have a parent, or you yourself have diabetes, whether you go see your doctor and you just get a frightening new diagnosis, or whether you're managing a chronic illness, that getting the medicine you need at an affordable rate should be a right, and it should not just be a privilege. So we are proud of the fact that Maryland is already a national leader when it comes to making prescription drugs more affordable. And we're thankful for all the leaders who have made that happen over years to come. Great to see you, Vin. And today, we're excited to be here to write the next chapter of this amazingly important work. That we need to move together, and it's time for us to get creative. It's time for us to get creative to be able to truly tackle a challenge that far too many of our folks continue to deal with. And we know that Maryland is facing a real budget challenge right now, and we know that we need to and we will continue to tighten our belt. But just because we are dealing with a fiscal challenge does not mean we are not going to take care of our people. And we know this, being fiscally responsible does not mean that we will forfeit our duty to ensure. So today, we are very proud to announce a new partnership between the state of Maryland and the nonprofit Serum to deliver high-quality, affordable prescription drugs to Marylanders. That Serum turns unopened, unexpired medicine into life-saving prescriptions instead of where they normally are, which is turning it into waste. That they are the nation's largest redistributor of surplus medicine, and they provide medications to families through their pharmacy service called Goodpill. The work happening at Serum helps Americans fill prescriptions for just around $2 a month. Now, yeah, we can applaud that. Now, we know around 1 in 2 Marylanders are worried about affording their prescription drugs. And we know that many Marylanders will skip their doses because of high costs. This new partnership is a game changer. It's a game changer for them. It's a game changer for their families. It's a game changer for the state. That anyone with a Maryland mailing address who faces high drug costs can send their prescriptions to Goodpill and have the medicine delivered to your home. This initiative comes at no cost to the state and will help Marylanders stay healthy and help Marylanders to save money. So at a time when we see rising prices of just about everything all across the country and all across the world, We are making it easier for working people to keep money in their pockets, where it belongs. And we're doing it in partnership. So, I want to take time to thank Serum, to thank Goodpill, to thank the Maryland Prescription Drug Affordability Board, the Department of Aging, the Department of Health, and all of our partners, both inside and also outside of the State House. We are going to make Maryland more affordable. And this is an important step to make it happen. And so with that, I'm very proud to introduce our partner inside this work and our next speaker, Kia Williams, the co-founder of Serum.
Thank you, Governor Moore and the state of Maryland, for partnering with us to bring Serum to the state. We are so excited to be here. We're ready and we're committed to making medicine more accessible to Marylanders everywhere. Getting the prescription you need should be simple, but for far too many people, it's not. Costs are too high. Coverage is too complicated. 1 in 4 people in Maryland don't take their medicine because it's too expensive. They're choosing between affording their prescriptions and affording basic rights like housing and food. Meanwhile, $11 billion with a B, dollars worth of medicine is wasted every year. That is unacceptable. At Serum, we turn that waste into life-saving medicine for people who need it. We are already doing this in 10 states, and now we are proud to bring Serum's work to Maryland with our home delivery pharmacy, Goodpill. Goodpill makes it simple and affordable for people facing high drug costs to get the medicine that they need. No insurance barriers, no piecing together different prices at different pharmacies. Just low-cost medications delivered straight to a patient's door. We are excited to work hand in hand with Maryland agencies, organizations, and providers who are dedicated to making healthcare work better for everyone, for every family. Thank you to Governor Moore, the Executive Office of the Governor, the Maryland Prescription Drug Affordability Board, the Department of Aging, and Department of Health for your early partnership and belief in this work. We invite any organizations or providers interested in partnering with us to reach out and learn more about how we can share this work together. And any members of the community, please just send us an email and we will reply. Serum's ready to get started, and we're so excited to bring down the cost of prescription drugs for families who need it. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Erica Miller, and I'm here today to share my story with high-cost prescription drugs. Several years ago, as I was working to get a diagnosis for my son, I learned well into my adulthood that I have adult attention deficit disorder, ADHD. It explains so many of my struggles over the years, and while I initially tried to convince myself that this was something I should overcome on my own, I finally agreed to try medication. I cannot begin to express to you the relief that I felt. The static noise and racing thoughts disappeared, and for the first time in my life, I experienced a quiet mind. It was life-changing. My focus and my performance at work improved. Tasks felt manageable, and my anxiety quieted as I finally felt like I had things under control. From the start, the medicine was expensive, but I was fortunate enough to be able to afford the nearly $100 a month copay. This changed when I lost my health insurance. Suddenly, I was facing a $600 bill at the pharmacy counter, something I simply couldn't handle as a single mother supporting 2 children. Drugs do not work if people cannot afford them. Yes. Forced to stop taking my medication, I felt the immediate negative impacts, and performing my corporate job duties became much more difficult. The high cost of prescription drugs and me having to choose whether or not I can afford the drug or take care of my family caused me to losing my job to fully realize that the soaring cost of prescription drugs can impact middle-class professionals as well. It is just simply not something you expect to struggle with. It is my hope that with this partnership, we can help protect other Marylanders from the same hurt. I want to reiterate that drugs do not work if people can't afford them, and we cannot afford to wait to take action in Maryland. I thank the governor and his administration for working with Serum to bring this potentially life-changing service to the state. Thank you.
From the media? Questions?
About this event or anything?
Just questions.
Oh, okay. Hi, Governor. Sorry, let me put my glasses on so I can see you. How are you? I have a question for you about the Senate President's remarks earlier this week, where he said, Marylanders, we have to brace for a potential a statewide recession in Maryland. I'm wondering if you are bracing for a potential recession, and if so, how you're doing that.
Yeah, I think we have to be honest about what we have seen in just these first weeks of the new administration. I think we have seen a frontal assault on Maryland. I think we have seen a frontal assault on our public servants and our federal workers, people who are working at the VA, making sure that our veterans are getting supported, people who are working to ensure that our educators are getting the supplies and the resources that they need to educate our children, people whose job it is to make sure that our older adults are able to get their prescription drugs. There's been a direct assault on them. That we have seen a challenge on everything from whether or not we are going to support Medicaid to whether or not the United States is going to pay its bills. So it's not just what we are seeing in the state of Maryland. It's the entire country now who is watching just an economic whiplash that is taking place from, frankly, some pretty disastrous and not very thought out policies. And when you consider that our state is so deeply tied and tethered to the federal government, we have over 160,000 federal employees in the state of Maryland, over 23,000 military veterans who are also working in the federal government call the state of Maryland home. These are our people, and they're under assault right now. And so it's the reason that we have introduced legislation to be able to focus on things like what are we doing to be able to better protect our federal workers. It's the reason that we have said things like we have to have a growth agenda and grow our economy, but making sure we're diversifying so we're not so directly tied to who's sitting in the Oval Office. That we've got to make sure that our economy can grow, and while we put also things in place that are saying things like in places and spaces where we need supports, educators, we're tens of thousands of educators short, let's streamline for federal workers to be able to get inside of a classroom, or helping the private sector who's looking for people, and you've got really qualified federal people who are now unemployed because of this administration, who now have a pathway to be able to get there. So I echo the Senate President when I say that there is a real danger to not just our economy, but to our way of life that this new administration has brought on board. And as I've said before, and I'm very clear, I will work with anybody. I will just bow down to nobody, because I will always defend my people.
Governor, I have an on-topic question. It's kind of threefold. What's the criteria to qualify? Is this open to everybody? How inexpensive is the medication? And what type of medications are we talking about?
Great.
Great questions. So the qualifications are people who have high drug costs. So you can have insurance because actually about half the folks that we serve have some type of insurance. So you can be uninsured or the new growing class of folks who are underinsured, meaning they have some type of prescription drug coverage, healthcare coverage, but their copays or deductibles or out-of-pocket costs are just too expensive. Most of the medications are $2 for a 30-day supply of most generics. Generally, if it's a chronic condition med, that'll be shipped as a 90-day supply if appropriate, and so $6. Did you have a final question? And then, sorry, the types of medications. So this is all kinds of medications, but the big ones are really around diabetes, heart disease, mental health, the issues that impact most Americans.
I have a question for the governor.
Okay.
Building off of what Kate mentioned with uncertainty, the news out of Capitol Hill seems to change on an hourly basis, I acknowledge, but how concerned are you about a potential...
That's been a thread that we've seen for the past 10 weeks, that the news is changing every hour.
Yes, fair enough. So at this moment in time, how concerned are you about a federal government shutdown, and what are you and your state agencies doing to prepare should the feds shut down tomorrow night?
I'm very concerned. It would be a disastrous decision. Because what it essentially would say, think about this, a federal government shutdown would essentially say that the United States has stopped paying its bills. It means it stopped paying for things that we have already taken on. That's what a federal government shutdown would represent. And it would mean basic services that we rely on, basic supports that people receive from the federal government, and all of the workers who are doing that work would now be told you are no longer necessary and no longer needed because the United States has decided not to honor its promises. That's what a federal government shutdown would represent. And so it's something that's very concerning, not just in terms of what the immediate economic impacts would be, but it's the message that it would send. It's the message that it would send to our international partners. It's the message that it would send to the rating agencies. It's the message that it would send to the American people. And so we are ensuring that we can both have ways to be able to support our federal workers during this time and also the federal workers who are just arbitrarily laid off. It's the reason that we have now launched websites that's actually focusing on things like job placement and also making sure that if people want to get inside of the classroom, that they can have a streamlined process to educational licensure. It's the reason that our Department of Labor has lifted up unemployment insurance. And when we knew we came on board, we inherited a broken unemployment insurance system, but our Department of Labor is not just making sure that we are rebuilding it, but also rebuilding it now to have to deal with the fact that our federal workers are also going to be the ones who are applying for unemployment insurance. So we are being aggressive on this. We are going to make sure that we are protecting our people, but our urge is for Washington to do its job and stop playing with the lives of the people in our state by doing this dance back and forth about whether or not the United States is actually going to honor its promises or not.
And in terms of Washington doing their job, what would you advise Democratic members of Congress or the Democratic senators how they should act going forward? Should they vote for the CR even though they want to?
Well, so I can't tell members of the United States Congress how to vote. I don't have a vote with what they do. But I want them to know how disastrous this would be for the people of our state if we do a government shutdown. I want them to know this was going to have very real human implications on the 6.5 people who call the state of Maryland home if the United States decides that it no longer wants to honor its bills.
Last question.
Governor, I know you say often you can work with anyone, and I know that you do work with the White House, and you're in Washington a lot, working with agencies and leaders. So I can't help but wonder, have you picked up the phone and called President Trump or tried to call Elon Musk and say, what are you doing? What are you doing to my state? Have you done that yet?
No, I've not tried calling Elon Musk. But here's the thing. I do want them to know that if they're serious about government efficiency, so are we. If they're serious about government modernization, so are we. It's the reason why one of the first hires that I made when I became the governor was a chief performance officer, whose job it has been to continue going into and working with, not against, working with our cabinet secretaries and our agency heads to find the places where there is waste, to find the place where there is abuse, and actually being able to root it out and save Marylanders money. And already we have saved Marylanders tens of millions of dollars by doing efficiency the smart way, by focusing on things like that. You can actually have data behind why we need to increase efficiency on things like on things like fleet consolidation and tech modernization and procurement reform and real estate, that there's certain real estate that frankly is on Maryland's books that shouldn't be on our books. Like, that's smart government efficiency. It's not the random and frankly the cruel way that DOJ has been approaching this work. And so I'd say that, for anyone who is serious about government efficiency, I'd say I'm anxious to take your call, and I'm anxious to work with you, because Maryland is actually showing the right, the smart, and the humane way of actually focusing on government efficiencies.